I took a complete stranger named Jacob from $8,000 to $100,000 a month in sales. He had 2 months experience in high ticket sales and honestly never thought he'd be good at it. But after teaching him my Unicorn Closer trifecta, he's now living the life of his dreams. In this video, I'll be interviewing him to show you exactly how I got him from complete sales rookie to his first 100K month. Pay attention because hidden in this video is the path to 10xing your income as a high ticket closer.
Last month I made 111,000. I think it was 111,181. Previously, Josh, I was driving for Uber, making like 4K a month in 14 months. And yeah, 14 months like took a little while, but I could have done it a lot faster. One of the things that immediately caught my attention, because I'm a huge Alex Hormozi fan, is you saying how you trained his gym launch team. When I heard Josh say he made 100K, I was like, you got to remember, I'm making a couple $1,000s a month driving for Uber, hating my life. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy made $100,000 in sales? No way. I was already in a sales training that I had paid, I think, $16,000 for.
Who were you back then?
Selfish, anxious, lost.
And who are you now?
When I learned that there was a method where we could focus on ourselves as people and then just try to have truthful conversations without an agenda, I'd say that was the turning point. And it's really when I found.
And how's that changed tangibly for you in your life?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one is I've made a fuck ton of money. I entered high ticket sales in April 2024. The offer that I was on when I joined Unicorn Closer Mastermind, it was a dating offer. The most I made, it was like $7,800. I forget the exact dollar amount, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. And before that, I was doing outbound cold calling, hating my life, commuting an hour and a half every day in LA traffic. I went off and I jumped around numerous different offers. I lost track how many offers I've been on. It's at least 8. The offer that I was on when I joined Unicorn Closer Mastermind, it was a dating offer. The most I made, it was like $7,800. I forget the exact dollar amount, but it's somewhere in that ballpark.
$7,800 when you joined the mastermind. How many months ago is that from now?
That was in August of 2024. So that was a little over a year ago. And I was following a very scripted sales process, but I felt like I wasn't having real conversations with people. And that was
what do you mean by real? Not real.
Well, every question was planned. And I knew exactly, I had an agenda. I knew exactly where the call was supposed to go. I was saying the same shit over and over in every call, and it was very annoying. I didn't like it.
What was your level of awareness of the impact of following a script back then?
I knew that the goal was to have a conversation. The thing was, the dating offer really sold to men who lacked confidence and weren't good at having conversations. So I was able to get away with it for the most part. But the prospects who I had that were higher level saw right through it. When you ask a dumb consequence question, it's very obvious, and it's like, giving clear analogies that I've given 1,000 times, they see right through it. So they ended up being, and it really affected me personally, because I was like, oh shit, they see me in what I'm doing. And it's almost like they broke the fourth wall of, oh, this call has been had in the exact same way 1,000 other times. I don't want to play the game.
In what way did it affect you personally?
The problem was when it wasn't an archetype of that nature, and it was more of a high level person who doesn't answer my question in the way that I feel it needs to be answered for me to get to the next thing, I'm like, oh fuck, what do I do now? So I got stuck. And that really affected me in terms of my self-worth of, am I good enough to have conversations of this level? And then in the back of my mind, I just knew we weren't having real conversations. It was very scripted. I knew exactly what I was saying, the exact order. Again, it just wasn't a real conversation.
At the time, had you done any internal mastery work?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I say no. I have always listened to self-development. So if you call that internal work, but in terms of what we're talking about in the mastermind, no, definitely not.
But you were always someone that was interested in becoming a better version of yourself, even prior to joining the mastermind. Interesting.
My whole life, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And so what was the signature moment, as we call it, where you said, I need to do something about only knowing how to read a script, losing some of these prospects, affecting my self-worth, all of the things you just mentioned?
I just didn't know there was another way. All the sales training that I had exposure to was scripts. And one day I was driving home from hanging out with my girlfriend, and a podcast that you were on popped up. And one of the things that immediately caught my attention, because I'm a huge Alex Hormozi fan, is you saying how you trained his gym launch team. And that video, I think in 15 minutes, I was watching that, I pulled over and I was watching that. And then I went to your sales page. I looked at it. I was already in a sales training that I had paid, I think, $16,000 for the year. And I still
Wow.
had like 6 months left in it. It was 6 months or 4 months. It was not an insignificant amount of time. And I
Mm.
remember Instagram messaging you and asking what you think I should do in terms of stick with the scripted sales training or join ahead and join you in terms of Unicorn Closer Mastermind. And your message was, "You ever heard of the sunk cost fallacy?" And I remember saying, "Say no more." And so while I'm driving, I continued listening to stuff because I had hours ahead of me. But then I got home and I joined you. So,
I think I've got that objection handler somewhere here in my black book of
oh
sunk
yeah,
just kidding.
when I learned that there was a method where we could focus on ourselves as people and then just try to have truthful conversations without an agenda, I'd say that was their turning point. And it's really when I found that first podcast that,
What would you say to someone now if they were in your position today when I've got my YouTube channel, I've got my Instagram, we've got all the videos on the YouTube, all the testimonials that we put out. If they said, I'm selling from a script because I didn't know there was a better way.
what would I say to that person? Are they watching this video now? Because if yes, then now you have no excuse.
Back when you joined the mastermind, there could be a case to be made that it wasn't out there.
Like it just physically didn't
Even if
exist.
you went looking on YouTube, scriptless selling or how to sell without a sales script, I don't think it was on YouTube from anybody. I don't think that was out there on YouTube. Whereas now, if any high ticket closer had an inkling of curiosity to want to dive into that, they only have to go on YouTube and type it in, and they'll see me, they'll see other trainers that are copying what we're doing and whatever. But I don't think they could be ignorant to say, I didn't know scriptless selling exists anymore.
I never even had the thought of, oh, I could sell without a scripted structure. Like during the entire process, I
Interesting.
never even had that thought of, oh,
Okay.
that's a thing, because it that's just what people do, right? Like you just follow a sales
Mm,
script.
interesting. That's useful to know. Okay. That's just what people do. Interesting belief. Because obviously, you know, my background, that was the opposite. My belief was, oh, there's people that use a script. Like, what do you mean you use a script to have a conversation? How does that work? You're at $7,800 14 months ago. Fast forward 14 months, you're at 111,000. Prior to then, you were struggling to have deeper conversations with the people that were seeing through what you're doing, the more high level people. And you personally were starting to get frustrated because you're like, I know that they're seeing through me, but I don't know that there's any other way to do this. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes.
Okay, cool. When you joined the mastermind, how did it differ when you first came in, if it did, to what you expected?
Oh, well, I expected there to be some secret stuff that once
Mm,
I had, then I was good and I would know. And in some ways, that's not inaccurate. But from when I had that thought, it's completely wrong. I figured it was just going to be okay, I come in, I get the secret sauce, we practice that, I'm good. But that's not quite what it was.
so what was it instead?
Well, the phrase "the journey is the way" comes to mind, where frequently people think the obstacle is something to overcome, and then they get to the next thing. But the irony is the overcoming of the obstacle in itself is the journey. And that's what's taken me a little longer than I would have liked it to in the mastermind, just through my own getting in my own way to get to that point. That would be, I'd say, the main difference is instead of thinking, oh, there's this secret thing that once I learn, I then go reproduce and I execute on, what it actually is, oh, I physically have to become another person.
How would you describe who you were before in who were you back then?
Selfish, anxious, lost.
Hmm. And who are you now?
Oh, I've yet to think that. Maybe just the opposite of those things. I like to think I'm significantly more selfless, and I wouldn't necessarily say I'm lost. I don't know what I am, but I'm certainly not lost, and I'm certainly more confident. So I'd say just the opposite of all those things.
And what did you have to overcome to become that different version of yourself?
My own inner battles of self-belief and overthinking. That's one thing that I think has been, and I reflect on this quite a bit, is, and you know my childhood backstory, it wasn't good, and we're not going to dive too far into that, but my
I've got a
entire
whole page of notes for that. Not just
my entire life, I've had this storm of thoughts and arguments and anxiety of beliefs, just all these different things. And over the weeks and months and year that I've been here, that has gotten so much quieter that now I actually feel like I can think and get through things. And I still catch myself jumping into old patterns every now and then when certain stimuli comes up. But now it's not all consuming, and the energy behind it isn't as sharp as it was, because it was bad. And so now it's so much quieter, and I can actually think and progress in how I want day to day. It's really nice.
And how do those changes affect, if they do, when you're doing sales, when you're doing sales calls, you no longer being in the storm?
It's probably the most impactful thing, because now, and it relates a lot to when I was doing scripts, because I was having to think of, oh, they said this thing, and how do I say this? And the interesting thing, the first words that came to mind is, how do I use this against them? And that's not really the intent, but that just shows where those thought processes come from, probably through a combination of childhood and the training itself. But now it's just data of, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Interesting. Now I'm more curious about that. How does this impact this thing? And this, now I need to learn more about this. Now it's just more of a puzzle, and I'm trying to understand and work through the problem with the person, rather than trying to, like a Jacob's ladder effect of chunk, 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 trying to get to the next point. And I feel like people trust me a lot more, because they feel like I'm not trying to do something. I'm just trying to understand what's happening. And ultimately, if we can help, then we will. And if we can't, then I'll tell them. The only answer I can give is everything's different now. The conversations, the depth, how I feel, the way I operate, everything.
And how's that changed tangibly for you in your life?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one is I've made a fuck ton of money. And so like last month I made 111,000, I think it was 111,181, which is the most I'd ever made, not only in sales, but in my entire life in a single month. So tangibly, I've made a lot more money.
What about what you've done with the money?
I mean, I bought a Tesla. I'm going to be moving soon and being able to move in and live with my girlfriend. I've made more than her entire annual salary in 1 month, which is pretty wild. So financially, there's a lot less stress there. Previously, Josh, I was driving for Uber, making like $4K a month.
What would you say to someone that says the mastermind is expensive?
I mean, compared to what? Your current reality that you don't like and know isn't working for you? That's what I would say to myself.
You were in the mastermind for 14 months. When I took your 111,000, you paid it back in 11 days. The whole 14 months you paid back in 11 days.
Oh, I thought about that. Last month, in 1 month, I made enough money to be in the mastermind for 37 months, which is ridiculous. So yeah, 3K, like it's a lot of money. But at the same time, whoever's watching this, what you're doing now probably isn't working for you. And if it was, I doubt you would have gotten this far in the video. And so the idea that 3K is a lot of money, sure, I can conceptually understand that. But against your existing reality, where you probably know that things aren't working for you, I mean, is it a lot of money when you've got people like me who weren't making money, and I wouldn't even necessarily say are that good at having conversations with people, or even overall being that good of a human, just as a concept. And then in 14 months, and yeah, 14 months, like took a little while, but I could have done it a lot faster, made $111,000 in a single month, which if you divide that by what I was making of 8,700 is 12.7 times. So just mathematically, I mean, the ROI is insane.
And what about if someone said, okay, Jacob, you accomplished this because you've gone through these personal changes, but fundamentally, why couldn't you have just done that on your own without having mentors, without being in a mastermind?
Because I tried that for 20 years and I didn't really get anywhere. Because I'm 31 now, and you can get places on your own. I got obviously to a point in my life where I was making thousands of dollars, which if you look at the worldwide economy is pretty decent. But for my income is absolute trash. And what I wanted to be, I've always wanted to be a millionaire. I've always wanted wealth. And I always told myself I would be by 25. And then when I got to 25 and I wasn't even close to being a millionaire, I was like, all right, by 30. And so it's like, could I have done it on my own? Fuck no. Like, absolutely not.
You said you always wanted wealth. What do you want now?
There are still things that I do that I need to improve on. Like, I haven't done a call review in a week. That's not good. And so there's still things that I do that I don't want to be operating at. And so I'd say realistically, the two things that are my current focus is executing on being the version of myself that I want to be more often. And then secondly is the financial reward that comes with it. Because now that I've made 100K, I want that to be the baseline. And I know that, and I've made this joke a ton of times, I know that if you or were on the offer that I'm at, 100K would be a breeze for you guys. Like, realistically, you could make $1 million in a month. Without question, you could. And I want to get to that point.
I was doing the numbers the other day when obviously we've got a bunch of people in the mastermind now that have made over $100,000 in a month from high ticket sales. You all have the same exact training and mentorship that I had from There's going to be a ton of people that are watching this going, one of two things: $125,000, and these two are saying that's reasonable. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. Like,
that's
they just
how I felt back then.
They can't fathom that. And there's going to be a bunch of people, maybe the same people, that are saying, well, it's just the offer. It's just because you're on a good offer. What would you say to those people from your experience of living the process of going from 8 different offers, you said ballpark 8, to then finally landing a unicorn offer? What actually had to shift for you to get on the unicorn offer?
Yeah. Well, there's two things in there, which is one, the people who are like, oh, it's not possible. That's how I felt. When I heard Josh say he made 100K, I was like, you got to remember, I'm making a couple $1,000s a month driving for Uber, hating my life. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy made $100,000 in sales? No way. And a part of me was like, that's not real. What's the catch? Like, is there a scam? And then, but the other part of me was just like, no, it's totally real. So in regards to the offer question, there is no doubt that the offer is vital. And so then I reached out to Skylar, who I had pretty much since day one in the mastermind, saw his wins, saw how overall him as a person, the way that he moved through life, and of course, the numbers he was pulling in terms of income. And I immediately wanted to get exposure to that.
What do you think would have happened regarding that step if you'd have not been in the mastermind?
Well, I physically I wouldn't have known Skylar even existed.
Let's just say realistically, you knew that there's this guy that's on an offer, a great offer.
Well, he wouldn't have given me the time of day. And he wouldn't.
Why?
I mean, well, why? Well, so we actually now only hire from within the Unicorn Closer Mastermind because it's just had such good results. But why? Because the thing is, I wouldn't have been able to land it because I wouldn't have been skilled enough to get to that point.
And knowing the version of you that you were when you joined the mastermind with respect.
Even then I wouldn't have been able to, and I didn't. That's why I didn't reach out to Skylar for 6 months.
Knowing the version of you that I know you were when you joined the mastermind, I would have been skeptical that I would have ever heard you say the problem was me, the version of you back then, which is the way you're talking now. Is extreme humility. How has that shifted by being in the mastermind, around people at the level of the mastermind, maybe around I, coming to the live mansion events? How has that affected your humility, which is one of the biggest shifts I've seen from you?
I have a big tendency to blame other people or circumstances rather than look at me And the default was always external rather than internal. And now I believe my default is it's internal. It's the opposite. So that is what I would say is the biggest shift.
What was it about the Unicorn Closer Mastermind that allowed you to make that shift?
If I didn't, then it wouldn't have worked because the whole point of the mastermind is to become a better version of yourself. And I always knew that to whatever degree I was a part of the problem, but I didn't really acknowledge how much of the problem was me. And I didn't make that the focus. It was more of just a component. And so as I go through the content and as I talk with other members and I talk with you and Underground Mentor, then I don't have the option to fall back on externalizing things because it's just not true. And I knew that the whole time. I just didn't accept it. And I think it took a little while to accept it.
How do you think that necessity to go through that acceptance and that having the mirror held up to yourself would be different with someone that joined any type of sales training that is teaching tactics? Say this, say that, memorize this, memorize that.
You don't get it. That's why I was so excited to join, is because the other sales training that I did, it was very tactical, and in the mastermind, that is the focus. And that's what I was looking for.
What would you say to someone watching this that says, like that sounds hard. I don't want to do the inner work and I don't want to have to do that. Just give me the tactics. What would your words of wisdom be to someone that chooses that path instead of a path of self-actualizing?
Well, I've seen both sides because I've been that person, and I've also seen people in the mastermind who were on that path who then left to go focus back on those things.
On what things? Just so people watching are clear what you're referring
tactics.
to.
They want to, like, when, just like me, when I joined the mastermind and I'm like, oh, cool, yeah, self-actualized selling, ha ha ha. But what are the tactics? Teach me the tactics. And then you get in and you're like, oh, it's not like, yeah, obviously there's techniques and there's skill set that we learn, but it's not a tactic per se. It's just being a better version of you that's overall a more complete human. And the tactics in other training, that doesn't teach you that. At least in my experience, that doesn't teach you that at all. And so when I see people in the mastermind and that's interesting that you bring that up, because that's always, I've had this conversation so many times where people are like, I want to learn objection handling and they're so tactic focused, but the problem is always them and they're trying to get the call to go somewhere, which obviously we're in a sales call. So there is to a degree somewhere to go, but they're trying so hard and they're missing data and they're not digging in to the obvious things. Like I gave you the example earlier of things of that nature. And I can vividly remember having conversations not only in the DMs, but on Zoom calls, but also in person with members of the mastermind who are struggling with this. And some of them ultimately realize of, oh, you're right. And it's not even really an I'm right thing. It's like, oh, that's obviously the answer of I need to focus on that thing rather than the tactic. And others, they'll temporarily say that and then they leave. And I've seen people come back, which is really cool. But it's not the tactic, it's you as a person. You either become that or you don't, or you are on the path to becoming that. And then you go back to just externalizing everything and saying it's tactics. It's not me. But I mean, that again, if you're at this point in the video, it probably hasn't been working for you that well.
Let's say someone does choose the path of tactics and, this kind of old adage of person A goes this way for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and person B goes this way for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's the difference in their lives? And let's ignore the finances. Let's just put the money difference aside. What's the consequences of their life as a whole if they've chosen to follow the tactics? What would you say, having now chosen the other path?
You'll just be so far behind of what you could be. Like, for example, what I gave earlier of how my mind is much more quiet. Like there's a lot of other differences, but that alone is huge. And there's no way I would have gotten to that point if I had been focusing on tactics. If anything, I can imagine it being worse because I'm just clouding my mind more with stuff. of just trying to get more in there rather than more of what we teach of, well, you've already got everything in there. For the most part, you've already got everything in there. So it's like, just have the conversation and just let it out, which I found to be very freeing.
Why does this all matter to you? Like, okay, you don't have a clouded mind, you can think clearer, you feel more peaceful. I get all of that. But so what? Like, why does that really matter to you, Jacob? Like, why do you care so much about having actually evolved as a person?
Well, I always have. I've always wanted to grow and learn, and I always wanted to be that person, but I didn't know how. And so I was just kind of hodgepodging so many different mentors, and all of it was virtual, and there was no structure behind any of it, and there was no real consistency of who I was listening to, and just all these different ideas. And it just wasn't a very clear path of how to get where I want. And I know that there's more to achieve and become, and I really want that. And if I go deeper as to why, I mean, what else is exciting in life? There's obviously experiences to be had, but do I want to just be this version of me forever? No, because that's how childhood was, is watching people living the matrix and knowing that there were different and arguably better ways of being and operating, and you had to become a different person. Like, you couldn't, and I think about this example every now and then. If I took my consciousness and I put it in your body, it wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to perform the same way because I'm not you. And so, like, even it's not just the, like, if you took me and you put me in a different environment and different skill set, that's not the only thing. Like, you have to become different to get the result, or you just won't.
And for some people, they might hear this idea of becoming more as a person and think it sounds super exciting. And, oh, yeah, I'm just going to, equip myself with all of these new skills and mindsets and beliefs, and it's all going to be, a great ride. How does that compare to what it was actually like on the inside to actually become a better version of yourself? Was it all just almost like a game and just fun?
No, no, it
Okay.
was hard. Yeah, I was constantly fighting myself and wanting to give up, and a lot of negative self-talk. But the thing was that I had just been there so many times that I knew I had to keep going. And I mean, Hormozi talks about this, and a lot of people do. It's like the two ways to succeed are keep going and never give up. And as long as you keep doing those two things, you just keep going and don't give up, then you will become. And that's what we talk about a lot in the mastermind, is following the long road. That stuck with me because I knew that even though there was that part of me that said, oh, this is hard, or it's not worth it, or I'll never succeed, whatever all those things I used to say to myself were, I knew that if I listened to that, then that would in fact occur. And so a part of me was almost excited to fight against that part of myself of,
Mm.
no, you've won so many times in the past, so you're not going to win. But it was like painful at the same time. So I wouldn't call it easy.
When you said fight against that lesser version of yourself, one of the things we've talked about a lot in the mastermind is the hero's journey. How has your journey mapped over to something like the hero's journey? Have you felt like you're going on your own hero's journey, your own hero's adventure, which was full of obstacles and challenges? Or how has it kind of been for you in terms of, like, if you were to explain the paradigm of it, so to speak?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a hero's journey. So, like, you know this, but people watching this don't. I now have my own office, which is pretty great. And previously, I was in the corner of my bedroom on sales calls, and I had to be very careful not to shift my body too much this way, or just very weird situations. And so I had to become a different version of myself to have better conversations with people, be able to access be able to absorb the information in the first place. Because one thing that just popped into my head is the fact that I listened to so much content in the past. I was only absorbing a small fraction of it because my mind was so chaotic. I was constantly getting distracted and having these fake arguments with people that were never going to happen in that way, and just fighting with ghosts of nothing. And so I wasn't really absorbing any of the information. But now when I listen to either call reviews or like rants from Underground Mentor or whatever it may be, it's so much easier to quiet my mind and just absorb the information. So to one, absorb the information, but then two, to access it, I had to become a different person because I recognized it wasn't working. So from the offers I was on to the conversations to my physical environment, all these different things, like, yeah, they've all been stepping stones.
What would you say as a percentage the likelihood is that someone could become the better version of themselves and make $100,000 a month in commissions if they follow the same path that you followed, commits to those same things on their hero's journey, that they would get the same result as you?
As close to 100% as can be. And the data that I have to back that up is Skylar, Nicole, and me have all been on similar journeys in relatively similar ways. And we all made 100K this month. And there were a lot of things that could have happened to have any one of us not make 100K. But the fact that we all made 100K in the same month, all being on similar journeys with as much collaboration as we do, I'd say it's as close to 100 as you can be.
There's some like unexpected thing over the year and a bit that you've been working with us?
The first thing that comes to mind is I'm now much more like Underground Mentor and you in a lot of ways in DMs. So when new members message me, the conversations go the way that I feel like for the most part, it makes sense for them to go. Whereas in the past, and same thing in daily life overall, I'm much more succinct in my responses, which will probably not necessarily showcase in this video in some ways. Just getting to the point and not being so personally invested in them and their success, which is actually a really interesting paradigm for the sales call, because I'm not so personally invested in them having to do stuff. One big thing, they have to do it my way. That's been a big theme throughout my life, is you have to do it my way. I'm right, man. And now, even though I believe that there is a way to do it, and I think my way is probably the right way to do it, it's almost like, hey, do it or don't. Like it's okay if you don't want to, but you'll probably continue to get the same results. The same with your questions of 3K is a lot of money, join the mastermind. It's like, well, I mean, I think you should, but if you don't want to, I mean, you don't have to continue living your existing reality. Whereas in the past, I'd be like, no, you should do it. Like hyping people up, trying to get them to that point. A part of me still feels that energy of, because I'm excited for them, of I think that they should do it, which is a different energy than where it comes now, where it used to come from, of I think you should do it because I want to feel right, which is very interesting.
Everything you're describing is becoming more enlightened as a person, being detached, being more grounded in yourself, being more simple. You know, it is what it is. Take it, leave it. How has the journey for you been spiritual?
Yeah, I used to be very spiritual when I was younger and going to church all the time, like 3, 4 times a week for years, maybe even a decade. And then when I went to college, I stepped away from spirituality because I guess it was just a party phase or something. I don't know. But now, and I wouldn't necessarily say I have a spiritual practice. Like I don't go to church, but I definitely believe in a higher power, much like I always did, but I'm definitely more connected to it now than I was previously. A higher power of, there's definitely something going on in the world and just reality that I feel more connected to, all these different pieces, even this conversation, like all the different energy that connects, from joining the mastermind to being on every offer that I was, to having the successes and the failures, to messaging Skylar and starting as a setter, even though I believed myself to be a closer, getting promoted to being a closer in 2 months, 6 months later, 8 months later, whatever, I think it was 8 months, making 100K, like all these different things interlocking and connecting. I know that wasn't just me, and being able to tap into that stuff, the 4D, as we reference in the mastermind, that has without question led me to this point, and it is what is going to continue leading me to wherever is next.
Why do you feel most people don't get to connect to the 4D?
Just so lost or in your head of the day-to-day reality, just caught in the matrix. I mean, in the movie The Matrix, Neo knows the entire time that there's something going on. He's always actively working towards it. But until he takes the blue pill or the red pill, whatever it was, I haven't watched it for a while. Like until he sees it, then it's like, oh, this is what it is. And then you can never really go back. And so I didn't really feel like I saw it until I joined the mastermind, and really until probably about maybe 6 months in or so, or maybe 4 months, whenever I went to the LA mastermind in person. And I met and I met you and I met all the other members. And I started to really realize, oh, there's deeper things at play here.
Who is
is Underground Mentor, who is your mentor.
But who is he?
Like literally?
As a person, who is this mysterious being?
Well, I don't even know if we can talk about too much.
How would you describe him? How is he different, if he is different, to the average person?
Just the most enlightened being that I've ever met as a human.
Have you met people not as a human?
I've met things that I would identify as not human in different realms, sure, but as far as like in this physical plane of existence, Underground Mentor is the most enlightened human, and just all the things, just he's so intelligent and so caring. And one thing that I comment every now and then is how little he talks about himself. That is so, all of his being when you're interacting with him is just about whatever the conversation is, or about you. If usually the conversation is like a personal struggle or a business struggle or just ideas, or he almost never talks about himself, which is so interesting because I talk about myself so much.
And what if someone thinks Jacob's just talking with hyperbole, that this guy's like super enlightened? Like what about him makes him the most enlightened person that you've been around?
I can feel it in his DMs, in his video calls, in his rants that he puts out in the mastermind. In person, I can just feel it.
What do you feel?
Just like energy emanating off of him, of just like that kind of thing.
And how did that compare, because obviously you'd never seen him in the mastermind. So for everybody watching, if does a video call, it's audio only inside the mastermind. There's no visual. How did it compare when you finally met him for the first time in person to all of the energy that you'd felt through DMs or through voice calls?
Well, the funny thing, when I met him in LA, for some reason, I assumed he would just be like to a degree. I assumed he'd be of just wisdom. And so I'm at the LA event and I'm talking to this guy and I shake his hand and I go, hey, nice to, or he says hi to me. It's like, hey, nice to see you. And I'm like, nice to see you too. And I'm listening to him talk to Harrison, one of the other members of the mastermind. And I'm listening to him talk for probably 30 seconds. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, that's And I was like, oh my God. And I realized how young he is. And I was like, wow, that's surprising. And then starts talking to somebody else. And I look at Harrison and I go, do you know who that is? And he goes, no. I go, that's And he goes, that's And Harrison's got this face of bewilderment, which we joke about in the mastermind all the time, which is really fun. It was very surprising. And I've seen that happen at each of the live events where people are like, oh my God, that's him. The wisdom that he has. And to go to your point earlier of, could I have done it without you and him? Oh, fuck no. Like having that component of the two of you has been extremely helpful, because now I feel like I've got just this treasure chest of tools that I can pull from whenever I need them, not only in a sales call, but in everyday environment, talking to other members, talking to other people.
How does having mentors compared to getting tools from a course?
The tools from a course, I would say, are enough to get you, like, if you're at, I was going to say 0 to 1, but that's not even really accurate. If you're already like somewhere, it'll get you a little further. But the thing is, those people aren't mentors in terms of they can see your blind spots in life and you as a person overall, and they're invested to help you fix those things, or at least, because again, like, you can't fix things for me, but you can point them out and then leave it up to me. And then if I decide to not do them, then you can hold up the mirror, which is really what mentorship is. And I believe that when somebody joins the Unicorn Closer Mastermind, that's the relationship that they're getting, is mentorship. Really what it is you and you are vested in them, just like you are in a sales call, getting to that next point. And whether they choose to take it or not, that's obviously on them. But that's at least I believe that's what your mission is how do you get somebody from where they are to where they want to be. And that's really what people are paying for.
How does all of the things that you've mentioned so far in terms of becoming a next level version of yourself, having a mentor, the financial gain, the lifestyle changes, how have those things from a sales context, if they have, impacted other areas of your life?
Definitely. I wouldn't say that I'm as far in those areas as I'd like to be. Like, my relationship with my family is still, well, at least my adopted family is still somewhat strained, largely probably because of childhood trauma. And what's interesting is I've essentially like cut them off for like 2 years now, since I moved to LA in July of 2023. And I don't know exactly when, but soon I'll be able to redevelop a relationship with them and not care so much about the past trauma or the current stimuli, because the person that I've become, I feel that now I'm more equipped with not letting that affect me so much personally. Whereas in childhood, and even a lot in young adulthood, or even a couple of years ago, that affected me a lot. And that would really get to me and my self-worth and my psyche and all those things. But I have developed more of a relationship with my mom and stepdad, who are in prison and have been for what I believe is a crime they didn't commit. I talk with them a lot more. I'm able to financially support them in various ways. Ultimately going to figure out ways to get them out of prison, which is something that I want to do. And that's finances are going to be a big part of that. So just all these different things.
You mentioned stuff with your parents. You mentioned having the finances has started to help you have a better relationship with your step parents. What about the non-financial side has allowed you to start developing that relationship more?
Now, I feel like we're able to have more connection and talk about things that really matter rather than just gossip about the drama of my family or just whatever we were talking about that I would say really didn't provide any value. My mom and stepdad, they live very small lives just by the structure of what they have to. And so we're able to talk about my wins and my challenges and the things that aren't even necessarily financial. Like, they've known that I wanted to pet a squirrel. And like, this, and obviously I posted this in the mastermind, but for people who don't know, is I have wanted to pet a squirrel. It had to be a wild squirrel.
It was on my list. It was on my list.
Do you want to save that? Do you want to save that for later, or do you want to talk about that?
No, we can go into it. Just want you to know that I know that was very important to you. So I was going to bring it up.
Okay. Tying into like the non-monetary things is just accomplishing various goals, being reconnected with them, and tying into all these different things and the challenges and their support of like, hey, don't give up, you got this. Or just when things are really hard, being able to express that to them, that has been extremely helpful. And I believe that they get a lot of value out of watching this, because like, obviously Matt didn't physically create, my mom literally like created me, and she was very intentional with wanting a child and giving birth. And she talks about how she wouldn't even eat blue M&Ms when she was pregnant with me. She was very strict. And so I was very intentional. And so feeling that love is cool, because I've never like had that in my life. Because again, my aunt and uncle, they didn't know how to express that in those ways. And I don't think they really felt it in those ways. And I didn't have access to my mom. So now that I'm an adult and having that relationship with her and Matt and being able to go through these challenges and these wins is very, very cool.
You mentioned something interesting there, which was, you said, for them being able to see your wins and see you becoming more is giving something to them, as in that they're actually benefiting through the evolution that you're going through.
I've seen enough comments in the mastermind to know of people saying, Jacob, your journey is very inspirational. Thank you for posting all these wins. This has really helped me along my journey, XYZ. And just having conversations with these people, that I've just seen the data enough times to know that it does have an impact going to that level 2, so to speak.
What is the environment of the Unicorn Closer Mastermind?
Well, the environment is, how do we all lift each other up? And that was certainly not how I was thinking for the first however many months. I was very jealous, blaming everything. And I even caught myself this month have a small degree of that when Underground Mentor made the joke of Nicole needs to hashtag beat Jacob. And I was I was triggered hard by this, and I was like, "Well, Nicole," and we brought on Justin as a new setter, who you're going to have another interview with. But we brought on Justin as a new setter into the uh, offer, and he immediately started crushing it. But all of his sets were going to Nicole, and she was closing almost all of them. And so a part of me was like, "Well, why should I even try? Like, Nicole's just going to beat Jacob, and she's getting all the good Justin sets, and and I caught myself thinking that and being jealous of Nicole of like, well, I want her to succeed, just not more than me. And then after like a couple days of this, I remember thinking, that's so stupid. Why would, what good is this doing? And then I closed numerous deals and started to get way closer to 100K. And then the day that Nicole hit 100K, and I struggled to say there was no part of me, because if I'm truly honest, there was a teeny tiny part of me that is there, and I don't know if it's ever going to go away, but just such a small part that was like me. But like the majority, like if I were to put a percentage on it, like 98% was so stoked for Nicole. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. She deserves it. That's so cool. That's amazing that somebody did that. And I was just so excited that she hit 100K, and I was like, how much higher could she go? And just the vast majority of me was so stoked for her. And then the following day, I hit 100K too.
So it's just amazing to watch the version of you that you are now, catching yourself in these things, you know, the jealousy, the blaming, the difference. You know, you said, what was and I's job or role in the mastermind, you know, to help people get from where they're at to where they want to go, so long as they actually truly want to make the changes. And I feel very proud. I know it was your journey, not mine, but it's just so fulfilling to watch you not only make the money, but to have become so aware of the parts of you that needed to evolve, and seeing you catch yourself in real time with those things. So it's very, very cool for me to experience the changes in you.
Well, thank you. I agree. It is very, very cool. And thank you for all your help.
You're very welcome. The live events, what has the purpose of those been for you in terms of a piece to your journey?
Having a way to travel the world, experience new places, meet people in person that I interact with virtually, and meet you and in person has been super cool. Sure as hell would not have made 100K in a single month. Meeting everybody and getting that energy transference in person is the number one thing. The connections that I made with people and the lessons that I learned from the other members, from you. One specific thing comes to mind from I had a conversation with him, and after giving him 10 minutes of context, I remember him saying, you know, Jacob, for you, I've got a lot of data on you. And I think that for you, the focus needs to be think less, act more. And that stuck with me. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, think less, act more. And I go, okay. And he goes, any other questions? And I go, no. He goes, okay. And then I proceeded to begin thinking less and acting more, which ties a lot into the storm of thoughts that I've referenced a couple times. But all those things of, so acting, leaving the offer, acting, contacting Skylar, asking to be a setter, acting as a setter, making 10K as a setter my first month, acting, being promoted to a closer, and then choosing to do that even though I was scared, not succeeding as a closer for a number of months for all these different things, to then that same month making 18,800, to then the following month making 50, the following month making 50, the following month making 111. Like, think less, act more.
What about if someone said, yeah, that's awesome, Jacob, but I've got a great social circle, and I travel quite often anyway. If I want to go to Cabo, I'll go to Cabo, and I'll take my friends with me.
I've got people that I would quantify as good friends, but I wouldn't say that they're helping me get to the next level of myself. But the idea that I am constantly surrounded by people who they themselves are all trying to get to the next level, but in the back of their minds, they also are in the front, depending on who they are. They want me to get to the next level too. And so could you get the same thing from the people you're with? I mean, maybe, but probably pretty unlikely.
Has the fact that when we do the events, we obviously go and stay in a pretty expensive place, has that had a personal impact on you, or is that not something that's been so moving for you in kind of moving the needle?
No, that's been really cool. So the idea that Also, the events are free, and I don't know if they're going to be free forever, but as of now, they're free. And so the idea that for free, obviously I pay 3K a month to be here and I pay for travel. For free, I get to go hang out in a giant cool mansion for 2 days with you and UM and all the other members, and we're all trying to get to the next level. Like, that's really fucking cool.
What's this deal, Jacob, with petting a squirrel?
Yes, the squirrel. I have always been obsessed with animals since I was a boy. I don't know when it started or what animal it started with, but all creatures I have been just obsessed with. And for some reason, squirrels, I had always wanted to pet a wild squirrel, specifically their tail. I have no idea why. And so I have been trying to pet a squirrel for 25 years of bringing peanuts to parks or like acorns, and I have never been successful. I have gotten inches close, like literally like holding whatever, and the squirrel's like right here, inches close, and they always get scared and run away. So I've been trying to pet a wild squirrel for 25 years. And so I bought a bag of walnuts on Amazon for like $30, and I've been keeping them in my pockets on my morning walks. And so for the last like 2 months, I've been bringing walnuts and trying to befriend the squirrels in my neighborhood and just have not been successful. And then on Tuesday, the day before we had our Wednesday live training, I had been, because you can grind the walnuts together and it makes this noise and the squirrels like it because that's the noise that they make when they're trying to eat it. So it attracts their attention. And so I've been making this noise while I'm walking, looking like a weirdo to all my neighbors in LA. So one finally took a walnut from my hand on a Tuesday, and I felt his little claws scratch me as he's taking the walnut. And I was like, oh my God. On Wednesday, I knew that soon I would be petting a wild squirrel. It was the final day of, I think it was October 31st. So whatever day that was. The day prior, I was 4 deals away from hitting 100K, and I had just fed a squirrel a walnut, and I got so close to petting it. And for some reason, something inside me, I just knew that the following day, even though I was 4 deals away and didn't really have much in the pipeline, I just knew that I would both make 100K and I would pet a wild squirrel. And so the following day, I was out for my morning walk, and one deal had closed that came out of the woodwork that I wasn't surprising. And then a second deal came while I was on the walk. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 2 deals away now. Heck yeah. But I still didn't have any other deals in the pipeline. But I had another like 8 calls left before the month was over. And I just knew that 2 of those were going to purchase, and then I was going to be at 100K. And while I was on the walk, I also knew that I would pet a squirrel. I just felt it. I just felt the sense of like peace that it would happen. And then it did. And I pet the squirrel, and I was excited. And I knew that people weren't going to believe me. So I was like, all right, I'll record it and I'll get a video. And then I pet it. And so like why? I have no idea. It was just something that I had always wanted since I was, I think 6, and I'm 31. So for 25 years.
And what do you think this thing is about? You just knew.
It just had to happen. What it was just this acceptance that it would occur, but also this part of me that knew that even if it didn't, it would at some point. And so like Skylar and I had been talking about making 100K, and I was 4 deals away. Skylar was like 7 deals away from making 100K. And he was pretty sad about not making that at that point, because he's now transitioning to sales manager, and he's been trying to make 100K since he's been in the mastermind. And so he told me, he's like, this is really my last month to do it. And so, if I don't, then I don't. And I was like, Skylar, I can totally appreciate that. Also, at the same time, you've made $89,000 this month. So this is almost triple what you've ever made before. And that's how I felt, because I was at like 74. And I was like, even if I don't hit 100K, I still made $74,000 this month, which is insane. And so I was really excited about that, and I accepted it. What I think it was is not being so attached to the outcome of making 100K, not being so attached to the squirrel of like this needy energy that I'm sure the squirrels picked up on, and my prospects picked up on, of I need you to buy so I get something. I just accepted. I was like, it happens or it doesn't, like whatever. I'm just going to do what I know to get to that point, and it either does or doesn't. And then it did. Part of me knew that operating from that mode, it would make it happen, even if I couldn't explain why.
It's always the moment we choose a position of acceptance, gratitude that you'd already made 75,000, and acceptance that if I make more, that's awesome. If I don't make more, that's also perfectly fine. What is self-actualized selling, and how does that show up on a sales call?
Self-actualized selling is you living life and going to new levels that you knew were possible and that you wanted, but in the past didn't reach for one reason or another. And you actively working towards either just getting further towards that thing or achieving that thing, whatever it may be. And that as a result gives you the life experience, but also the authority to have that energy and belief to help other people do the same thing for themselves.
Oh, you heard it from Jacob. That is the definition of self-actualized selling. Actually going on the path yourself, so that when it comes time on a sales call to ask your prospect to make a decision, to actually take action, you're asking that from the belief and the energy of authenticity. And your prospects can feel that. Not only will you attract prospects, you will also be able to close prospects because of that authenticity. That is self-actualized selling. That is what we teach inside this mastermind. Perfect definition. How do things typically go on a sales call because you're operating from this way of selling?
They're a lot smoother. They're so much more chill because really we're just very collaborative, trying to find out what's the problem, why is it a problem, why is it a problem for you, what have you done to try to fix this, like all these different things. And then ultimately, if my solution helps solve those things in those ways, then we'll have a conversation about that. And more often than not, people end up buying if I did everything properly.
How has you operating from the place of self-actualized selling and doing what you just said there, you know, focusing on the simple things, making sure you do what you need to do, going deep, having a real conversation in regards to and need to tackle objections?
When I do the calls the way that they need to be done in terms of being curious about them, like following all of my things on my lovely stay checklist, we don't really get objections. And there was a call, and I mentioned this in the random hangout, but I don't think you were on there. There was a call that I had with a woman who ended up purchasing our thing, who's been paying $250,000 in taxes every year for the last 4 years. And this year she's set to pay 500. And so I remember asking her in the call, I was like, well, so what's different about 250 to 5? And she's like, well, I just don't want to pay more money. And I go, no, I can appreciate and understand that. What is it about the jump from 250 to 5 that you didn't like? And she goes, well, I mean, I was fine paying at 250, but like 500, I'm not. And I go, okay, well, so why is it that you were fine at 250, but 4 years prior, you weren't fine at 40? Because again, you went from 40K in taxes because she's a doctor. So she went from paying 40K in taxes to 250 every year and has for the last 4 years. And I was like, well, why is it that you were fine at 40, but not at 250? But now you're saying you were fine at 250, but not at 5? I had to ask that question somewhere. We had to sit there for a good 10 minutes. And it was probably the most awkward sales call I've ever had in my entire life. And at one point, because I felt the part of me was like weirded out that because I was just so confused. I was like, why is it, I couldn't fathom, why is somebody okay paying that much in taxes? And then secondly, why are you saying you're fine at 40, but not at 250, but fine at 250, not at 5? It didn't make sense. So I basically told her that. And at one point she broke and she was like, I don't want to pay taxes, Jacob. I don't want to pay 250K in taxes. I don't want to pay 500K in taxes. Is that what you want to hear? And I was just like, well, yeah. And I did it exactly like that. And she goes, well, good. I'm glad we got to it. And I was like, well, hang on now. Is any part of you doing that because you think that I want something, or is that actually how you feel? And she goes, well, it's a bit of both. And I go, well, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I hate the idea that I have to pay that much in taxes, but XYZ. And so and then we dug further into it. And I was like, look, I'm not trying to do anything. I figured that something was there and we need to talk about it to see if I can help you. So what's going on? So finally we got to that point. I could never have done that in a scripted sales call.
Yeah. Why couldn't you have done that in a scripted sales call prior?
Because it's not my next question. It logically wouldn't have made sense. And the other thing is that I was just trying to I would have asked a stupid question of well, what impact is paying 250K in taxes? And it's not that you can't ask that question. It's just in the context of her saying, I'm fine paying 250. If I then say, well, what impact? She's going to go, well, I mean, I pay 250. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the likely next question at that point wouldn't be impact on a script. It would probably be, okay, understood. What happens though if 6, 12, 18 months go by and you're still paying $250,000 a year in taxes? What happens then? Well, then I'm still paying $250,000.
Yeah, it's a stupid fucking answer.
How much does you having done some of the internal mastery work, and I say some, lots of it, impact you being able to stay there when most salespeople wouldn't be able to? Why were you able to do that when most salespeople wouldn't?
It was for her because she had to say what was really going on. And because she'd been aware that there were solutions for 4 years the whole time. And I was like, well, so why is it from this jump to this? So I did it for her. And then the second being to do my job of have this conversation and get the results that I want for myself and my family. There was nowhere else for us to go. Because if she was genuinely fine paying $250K in taxes, but all of a sudden the jump from 250 to 5 was just kind of an annoyance for her, which is how it was being framed, we couldn't help her because there was nothing that our program could do, because she just wouldn't have done what was needed.
100%. How is the Unicorn Closer Mastermind different to, in my opinion, any other sales training, mentorship, mastermind? If you were to say that from your own words, how is it different?
Well, I mean, you don't get U or UM in another mastermind. So,
Why does that matter?
Because you two as people are who I aspire to be more like. And if I didn't have access to that, I don't know how I would get there.
What is it about us that you look at and think, oh, I want that? I want to be that.
The way you guys operate in terms of your thought processes and how much you care about people and your vision of your own life and other people's lives. And where I've seen, because I've heard your story and I know your story. And so it's like where I've seen you go in just like 5 years having access to UM. And it's like where I've seen you go from just the last 14 months that I've been here, and just like the changes of all those things and seeing UM also grow and progress. I relate a lot to the different struggles and some of the different mind viruses that we talk about in the mastermind. I like the way you guys think and operate, and that's what I want more of.
For anybody that has listened to your story, seen your results, seen the results of the other members, that is still sitting on the fence, what would your personal words be to them?
The first words that come to mind is, what do you got to lose? I know that the mastermind in its current form is $3K a month, and you have to agree to spend 4 months. If you've gotten to this point in this video, you already know that things are not going the way that you want them to. There's a part of you that probably also knows that it is possible. And maybe you've tried different things, or maybe you haven't. I tried numerous sales trainings, and none of them got where this got me. And I had never really tried like a life mentorship in a way, but that wouldn't have gotten me sales. And so the idea that you can get life mentorship and sales mentorship in one for $3K a month, which is to me almost no money now. It's no money compared to the results that you could get if you do it. Now, what I will say, if you are not willing to put in the work, then don't join, because you're going to fail. And if a part of you is like, oh, well, I haven't put in the work before and I'm worried that I won't now, that's not what I'm referring to, because like I've done that 100 times in my life. I've joined things and I've quit and da-da-da. But you know, and only you know, if you're at that point, as we reference in the mastermind, the signature moment, only you know if you are at that point where you're willing to burn the ships and say, no, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to put the work in. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do the stuff. And if you're at that point, the only logical conclusion is to join the mastermind, because if not, then you're just going to continue doing whatever it is in your life that, again, you know is not working for you. And like, you'll maybe get marginal success, but you're probably not going to make 100K a month.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Thank you for taking the time to share with everybody watching your story. I'm sure for everybody it will be very inspirational. And for, like you said, the 99.9% need not bother joining because they're not ready to put in the work. But for the 1% that is, this may be the turning point, signature moment for them, being able to see someone actually going through their whole story. So
thank you very much. See you on tomorrow's training.
See you tomorrow. Bye. Interview with Jacob, who within 14 months of being in the mastermind has gone from $6,000, or should I get it right, $7,000 a month to $111,000 a month. If you know you're ready to work with me directly, to work with the underground mentor, to get around the unicorns like Jacob and all the other unicorns, and most importantly, to truly become the next level version of yourself, then below this video is a link to join the mastermind. You've heard from Jacob. Sure, you got into high ticket sales because you want to make money, but it's not just about making money. This is about truly transforming as a person, becoming that next level version of yourself that goes through the internal changes that Jacob shared, going from being someone that had a big ego, someone that always wanted things their way, to someone in Jacob's mind that has cleared in Jacob's words, should I say, that has cleared the storm, that has a calmer mind. If you truly want to become the next level version of yourself by mastering sales, below this video is a link to join the mastermind, and I'll see you on the inside.